What if the only thing standing between the life you have and the life you want is a thought you've never questioned? Not your past, not your mistakes, just one idea. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. You were never too late. You were just taught to believe that time was your enemy. But what if now, this very moment, is the most powerful starting point you'll ever have? Most people won't change until life forces them to. But what if you didn't have to wait for the breakdown, the heartbreak, or the loss to finally wake up? What if today was your turning point, not by accident, but by choice? Have you ever felt like life moved on without you, like you were supposed to catch some invisible train, one that never slowed down long enough for you to board? You look around, and it seems like everyone else figured it out. Their careers, their confidence, their calling, and you're just standing there, holding onto a ticket that feels expired. If you've ever felt like that, you're not alone. In fact, most people carry a silent ache, the sense that they've missed their moment, that it's too late to begin again, that the door has closed and the light has gone out. But here's something the ancient Stoics would want you to remember. That feeling, it's just a thought, a perception, and perception is not truth. The truth is right now. This very moment is still full of potential. It hasn't vanished. It hasn't disappeared. It's right here, unfolding as you breathe. And it's not too late. We often postpone action because we're waiting for the perfect time. We tell ourselves, I'll change when I feel ready. I'll start when I'm less tired, when I'm better, when I'm smarter, when the fear disappears. But as you may have already noticed, that better version of ourselves we keep waiting for rarely shows up. And that perfect day, it never really arrives. That's why the Stoics, those practical philosophers of ancient Rome and Greece, left us one timeless reminder. Life isn't happening yesterday or someday. It's happening right now, right here, where your feet are. As Marcus Aurelius once reflected in his meditations, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. That isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up. Because if you've ever thought, I wish someone had told me this sooner, then let this video be your moment, not of regret, but of beginning. Let's explore together 9 core Stoic lessons that aren't just meant to be admired in books or quoted in captions, but lived right now. Especially if you feel like you've missed too many chances. We'll start with the first lesson, one that has rescued thousands from stress, confusion, and helplessness. It's called the dichotomy of control. You can't rewind your life. You can't erase what was said in anger, undo what was broken, or retake that missed opportunity that still haunts your memory. But you can do one powerful thing, and it changes everything. You can choose how you respond. That's the essence of the dichotomy of control, the most foundational principle of Stoicism. It's the clear, unwavering line between what is up to you and what is not. What you control, your actions, your judgments, your responses. What you don't, other people's opinions, outcomes, the past, the weather, the world. It sounds so simple that we overlook it. But if you really live by it, it transforms your entire experience of reality. As Epictetus, a former slave turned philosopher, once said, some things are up to us, and some are not. And every ounce of unnecessary suffering comes from confusing the two. Let me tell you a story that shows this principle in action. In 1903, a man named Horatio Nelson Jackson, a doctor with zero engineering knowledge, made a wild bet that he could drive a car across the United States. At the time, cars were barely more than noisy metal boxes. Roads were barely paved. Maps were unreliable. Gas stations didn't even exist yet. But Horatio didn't wait for better tools or better timing. He simply decided. He brought a mechanic friend, a loyal bulldog named Bud, and an almost reckless sense of determination. For 63 days, he faced breakdowns, torrential storms, impossible directions, and constant disbelief from the people around him. But here's what matters: he didn't quit. Because Horatio understood something most people never learn: that you don't need perfect conditions to begin. You just need clarity about what you can control, your attitude, your perseverance, your effort, and complete release of what you can't. That's Stoicism in motion. Horatio Jackson probably never read Marcus Aurelius. He never called himself a Stoic, but he lived like one. I don't control what happens around me, but I control how I respond. Maybe you've been sitting with the weight of regret. Maybe you've thought about all the time you wasted staying silent when you should have spoken, or how many years you let fear steal your voice. But pause, take a breath. You're forgetting something important. This moment right now is still yours. You have full control over what your next thought will be, your next word, your next step. That's real power. Not over the world, over yourself. You can replay the old failures, or you can study them and grow. You can sit in bitterness, or you can rise in responsibility. This is not abstract theory, it's a tool, a shield, a sword. The next time you feel overwhelmed by life, by your inbox, your anxiety, your shame, or your uncertainty, stop and ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is yes, act boldly. If the answer is no, release it completely. No guilt, no drama. That's the clarity Stoicism gives. It doesn't harden you, it clears your vision. Because when you know what truly deserves your energy and what's just noise, you stop wasting your strength and you start building something unshakable. Maybe you needed to hear this years ago, but maybe today, in all its imperfections, is actually the ideal time. Every meaningful change starts with awareness. And if you're still listening, still reading, still breathing, that's proof you still hold the most vital power there is. The power over yourself, the power to respond, the power to begin. And now that you see that clearly and deeply, let's go one step further. Let me introduce you to a Stoic idea that will at first seem almost impossible, strange, even radical. It's not about accepting your fate. It's about loving it. Let's talk about amor fati, the second lesson. Most of us are taught to accept life's disappointments with quiet resignation, to nod, to endure, to say, well, I guess that's just the way things are. But Stoicism offers a different path, one that's more radical, more freeing, and infinitely more powerful. It doesn't just say accept your fate. It says love it. This idea is known as amor fati, which in Latin means love of fate. It's not just about surviving hardship, it's about using every moment, especially the painful ones, as building blocks for the person you're becoming. It's the invitation to make peace with what life gives you, not by denying your pain, but by transforming it. Let's take a moment to sit with that. What if you saw every setback not as a curse, but as part of your personal story, part of the sculpting of your strength? What if you looked at failure and thought, good, this is where I grow? What if you stared loss in the face and whispered, thank you for teaching me what really matters? That's amor fati. It's not passive. It's not blind. It's not delusion. It's a conscious act of power, the kind that makes you resilient, unshakable, and wise. Epictetus put it like this: do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, want them to happen the way they do happen. Then you will be happy. At first glance, that sounds like giving up, but it's actually the exact opposite. It means you're no longer a slave to outcomes. You no longer depend on the world behaving a certain way in order to be at peace. You own your attitude, your interpretation, your response, and from that place, everything changes. Let me tell you the story of a man who embodied amor fati in the most unexpected way. Thomas Edison died in 1914. A fire broke out in his research lab. Flames shot into the night sky. Years of experiments, prototypes, and equipment gone. The damage was worth millions, and Edison was already 67 years old. His life's work up in smoke. Most of us would have collapsed, broken down, lost hope. But do you know what Edison did? He found his son, pointed toward the blaze, and said with a strange spark in his voice, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They'll never see a fire like this again." He watched everything burn, and he smiled. No rage, no despair, just a strange kind of wonder. 3 weeks later, he launched his next invention. That's amor fati. Edison didn't love the fire, but he loved life enough to not be defeated by it. He saw meaning in motion and trusted that even in destruction, something new was being born. You and I will both face losses of people, dreams, illusions, comfort. The question isn't if, it's how we face them. Amor fati is not about pretending everything is okay. It's about embracing the truth that even what breaks you can shape you if you let it. A breakup can teach you the depth of love you're capable of. Losing a job can unlock parts of your creativity you never knew existed. A failure can wake you up in ways that success never could. We're not here to deny pain. We're here to see its purpose, to hold it up to the light and ask, what is this teaching me? You don't have to thank the storm, but you can stop hating it, because the more you resist what already is, the more you suffer, and the more you learn to flow with it, not as a victim, but as a creator, the more powerful you become. Amor fati reminds you that life isn't a polished symphony. It's jazz, it's unpredictable, improvised, raw. While there are no perfect notes, only the harmony you learn to find in the chaos. So the next time something doesn't go your way, the delay, the rejection, the heartbreak, don't just grit your teeth. Smile, breathe, and think, this too is part of the path. And maybe, just maybe, it's the exact detour you needed to become the person you're meant to be. Now let's go deeper, because this next Stoic principle might sound dark at first, but in truth, it's one of the most liberating ideas you'll ever encounter. It's called memento mori, the reminder that you will die, but not to make you afraid, to make you more alive. Are you ready? Let's go there. Begins next with memento mori. There's a strange paradox at the heart of being human. We know we're going to die, and yet we live as if we never will. We delay our dreams. We hold grudges. We skip phone calls. We let sunsets pass unnoticed, leave words unsaid, and bury the things that matter under the weight of things that don't. Why? Because we believe we have time. But Stoic philosophy, in its quiet, piercing way, challenges us to wake up. It whispers a phrase that echoes through centuries: memento mori, remember you must die. It might sound grim at first, morbid, uncomfortable, but the goal isn't fear, it's clarity. This phrase isn't meant to darken your days, it's meant to sharpen your vision, to clear the fog and remind you that every day is a gift you don't get to keep forever. When you remember that your time is limited, you begin to truly live. You stop waiting for the right time. You stop hoarding love like it's a luxury. You stop letting fear be your reason. You start saying what needs to be said. You start walking away from what doesn't nourish you. You start showing up fully, not someday, but now. Epictetus wrote, "Keep death and exile before your eyes each day, along with everything that seems terrible, and you'll never have a base thought, nor will you have excessive desire." What he meant was simple. When you remember the fragile, fleeting nature of life. You naturally drop the pettiness. You no longer obsess over what doesn't matter. You start asking, what do I want to give before I'm gone? Who do I need to forgive? How do I want to be remembered? And more importantly, am I even living as myself? Let me tell you a story. His name was Stephen. He was a 42-year-old architect, brilliant, driven, respected, and completely addicted to work. He poured everything into his career, 60, 70 hours a week. Weekends blurred into Monday mornings. Nights were swallowed by client calls and design edits. Every time his kids asked to play, his response was always the same: not now, after this project, maybe next weekend. Then, one afternoon during a meeting, Stephen's phone rang. His father had passed away. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. And just like that, everything stopped. At the funeral, Stephen looked down at the lifeless body of the man who raised him, the man he hadn't spoken to in weeks. And in that moment, something shattered in him. He realized time waits for no one. No project, no promotion, no ambition. Nothing could give him that day back. The next morning, he wrote a phrase on his whiteboard, memento mori, not as a dark reminder, but as a promise. From then on, he left the office by 6 p.m. He was home for dinner. He sketched with his kids every Sunday in the park. He stopped pretending that busyness was a badge of honor. He started living. Memento mori didn't make him gloomy, it made him wise. You don't have to wait for a funeral to wake up. You don't need a tragedy to remind you of what matters. You can choose today to live with urgency, with depth, with intention. Ask yourself this: if today were my last day, what would I regret not doing? Who would I call? What words would I finally say? What dreams would I stop postponing? Because the truth is, none of us are promised tomorrow. And that's not something to be afraid of, it's something to honor. The Stoics didn't fear death. They used it as a compass. Seneca said, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing." He wasn't asking you to panic. He was inviting you to stop waiting. Every second you spend in hesitation is a second lost. Every breath you hold back is a moment you lived. So if you're holding onto words, speak them. If you're holding back love, give it. If you're waiting for the stars to align, stop. They already have. You're alive, right now, and that's enough. Maybe you needed to hear this years ago. Maybe you've lived with one foot in the future, thinking you had more time to get it right. But the truth is, life doesn't wait, and it doesn't apologize for moving on. What it does offer, however, is now, and that's everything. So pick up the phone, say the thing, hug longer, hold less back, smile more, and above all, live like it matters, because it does. Memento mori is not a death sentence, it's a life invitation. One final question before we move forward. What would change if you truly believed today was a gift, not a guarantee? Answer that, and you'll start living the Stoic way. Now, let's take this even further. Because once you've faced your mortality, once you've realized that time is precious, there's one obvious next step. Be fully here. In the next lesson, we'll explore how Stoicism teaches you to live in the present moment, and why that's the only place where life actually happens. Are you ready? We talk about time like it's endless. We say, "I'll do it tomorrow. Next week will be better. When things calm down, I'll finally." But the truth is, later is an illusion. Tomorrow is a concept, and next week, it's just a promise we make to ourselves to feel better about doing nothing today. The only thing that's real, the only moment that's ever truly yours, is now. And that brings us to the fourth Stoic lesson. Focus on the present. Marcus Aurelius, in the quiet pages of his meditations, wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." Why? Because everything else, the past, the future, is outside your grasp. You can't edit what's already happened. You can't predict what's still to come. But this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, it's alive. It's yours. It's the only place where you can actually live. We often spend so much energy reliving the past, the arguments, the mistakes, the regrets, or we let our minds spiral into the future with worry, anxiety, or obsessive planning. But all that does is rob us of the one place where our power exists. Here. Now, imagine a performer on stage, delivering a heartfelt speech to a crowd. But as they speak, their mind drifts. What if they don't like this part? What if I forget the next line? The moment they leave the present, they lose their presence. And it's the same with us when we worry about how we'll be perceived or dwell on how we were hurt. We lose touch with the actual experience unfolding before us. But when you focus on now, on the word you're saying, the step you're taking, the breath you're breathing, you reclaim your power. The Stoics weren't trying to escape time. They were trying to master it. And that mastery begins by refusing to be pulled into a timeline that doesn't exist. Even the Bible, in the book of Matthew, reminds us of this wisdom. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. That's not just religious advice. That's spiritual clarity. It's a call to live with trust, to live with presence. And presence is not about perfection. It's about attention. Let me give you an example from real life. There was a young man, early 30s, who always wanted to start his own business. He dreamed of building something meaningful, of finally escaping the corporate life that drained him. But every week, he said the same thing. I'll start once I feel more prepared. Maybe after the holidays, just a little more research, a little more planning. And months passed, then years. One day, he got a call. His younger sister had been diagnosed with late-stage cancer. The news shattered him. Suddenly, all the careful planning, all the waiting, all the some days collapsed into one urgent question. If not now, when? He started that business within 30 days. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and he never looked back. Because sometimes life forces us into the present. But what if we didn't wait for tragedy to wake us up? What if we practiced presence before we were shaken into it? That's what Stoicism offers, not a life without emotion, but a life rooted in what's real. Here's how you can begin. When you're speaking with someone, really listen. Not with your reply loading, but with your heart open. When you're working, immerse yourself. Feel the keystrokes, the breath in your lungs, the purpose in your hands. When you're walking, notice the sky, the trees, the rhythm of your feet on the pavement. When you pray or reflect or meditate, be there, not out of obligation, but out of reverence for the moment. Because when you live like this, life stops rushing past you. It slows down, it becomes vivid. And what once felt ordinary becomes sacred. You see, being present isn't just a trick for better productivity. It's a doorway to inner peace. Because regret lives in the past, and anxiety lives in the future. But peace, real peace, lives here. Now, if you've been feeling like you've missed too many chances, or wasted too much time, let this be your moment to start again right now. Not in a week, not in a year, because the past doesn't define you, and the future hasn't been written yet. The present moment, however small, however quiet, is where the miracle happens. Every great transformation in history began with one moment of clarity, one moment of presence, one moment where someone said, "This moment is enough. I will act, I will live, I will choose." So start today. Start small. but start real. Because you are not your yesterday, and you are not your fears about tomorrow. You are the choice you make right now. And if you can anchor yourself here, in this breath, in this step, in this intention, then you are already walking the Stoic path. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about grounding your energy. It's not about being rigid. It's about being awake. So if you want to reclaim your life, your time, your voice, your focus, it begins here. Not in some ideal future, but in this very moment. Now that you've learned the power of the present, let's explore something a little harder, a little more uncomfortable, but incredibly powerful. It's about voluntarily stepping into discomfort, not to punish yourself, but to make yourself free. Let's talk about voluntary discomfort and how it just might be your greatest ally in becoming unbreakable. Let's be honest, we live in an age of convenience, instant food, instant entertainment, instant answers. If something takes more than a few seconds to load, we get annoyed. If the room's too warm or too cold, we adjust the thermostat with a tap. If we're hungry, food appears at our door without us lifting anything more than a finger. Comfort is everywhere. But here's the hard truth. Comfort doesn't build character, it numbs it. And that brings us to the fifth Stoic lesson, one of the most misunderstood but transformative ideas in all of philosophy: voluntary discomfort. The Stoics believed that comfort makes the body soft and the soul softer. That doesn't mean we should live in misery. It means we should train ourselves not to be dependent on ease. Because the more you need things to be just right to function, the more fragile you become. Now, one man who embodies this principle in the modern world is David Goggins. He's a retired Navy SEAL, ultra-endurance athlete, and one of the most mentally tough people alive today. But Goggins wasn't born that way. He grew up abused, overweight, depressed, and full of fear. At one point, he was over 300 pounds, working as an exterminator and hiding from the world. But something in him snapped, or maybe something awoke. He realized that the only way to escape weakness wasn't by waiting for strength to arrive, it was by chasing discomfort. He began running, not because he liked it, but because he hated it. He ran until his shins fractured, until his body bled, until he nearly collapsed from exhaustion. He ran not to impress anyone, but to face himself, to meet the part of him that lived under fear, and to drag it out into the light. That's the Stoic way. Seneca, one of Rome's wealthiest men and wisest philosophers, used to deliberately sleep on the floor for a few nights every month, not because he had to, but because he chose to, so he could remind himself that he didn't need luxury to survive. He wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?' Because when you willingly face what you're afraid of, poverty, hunger, discomfort, you realize it doesn't own you anymore. And once it no longer owns you, it no longer limits you." Voluntary discomfort is a kind of spiritual training. You put yourself in controlled hardship, so when uncontrolled hardship shows up, you're already stronger than it. So what does this look like in your life? It could be as simple as taking a cold shower instead of a hot one, not to suffer, but to reset your nervous system, skipping a meal once a week, to remind yourself of your body's resilience. Turning off your phone for 24 hours, to reclaim your mind from the addiction to noise, waking up an hour earlier, to prove to yourself that you can, even when it's hard. These aren't punishments. They're practice. Every time you do something that's uncomfortable, something you'd rather avoid, you're telling your brain, "I'm not here to be ruled by comfort. I'm here to become stronger than my excuses." And over time, that discipline becomes freedom. Because when you're no longer afraid of being cold, tired, hungry, bored, or ignored, you're not afraid of life anymore. You stop needing everything to be perfect. You stop quitting at the first sign of pain. You start moving through storms, not because they're easy, but because you've trained for them. The Stoics trained for difficulty because they understood this truth. Life will be hard. Loss will come. People will disappoint you. Your plans will fall apart. So the question isn't how to avoid hardship. It's how to become someone who can stand tall inside it. That's what voluntary discomfort gives you. It gives you inner armor, the kind that isn't obvious on the outside, but that shows up in your calm voice during chaos, your stillness in pain, and your grace when things go wrong. You don't need to be extreme like Goggins. You don't need to run 100 miles with broken bones. You just need to choose one small act of discomfort every day. Start with 10 minutes. Run in the rain. Skip dessert. Sit with boredom instead of reaching for your phone. Because each small act chips away at your weakness and builds your self-respect. Stoicism doesn't glorify suffering. It glorifies the strength that comes from facing it voluntarily. So ask yourself today, what's one thing I've been avoiding because it's uncomfortable? What's one challenge I can face, not because I have to, but because I choose to face it? Not to prove anything to anyone else, but to prove to yourself that you are no longer afraid of the thing that once controlled you. And once that fear begins to fade, you begin to grow into the person you were meant to be all along. Strong, rooted, resilient, free. Now that you've learned how hardship can become your training ground, we'll take the next step. Let's rise even higher, not physically, but mentally. In the next lesson, you'll discover a perspective that can instantly shift the way you see any situation, especially conflict. It's called the view from above. And once you learn how to use it, you'll never see your problems the same way again. Have you ever been in a heated argument where your heart's pounding, your mind's racing, and every word from the other person feels like an attack? In that moment, it feels like nothing else exists. Just you, the problem, and the rising pressure in your chest. But imagine something for a second. What if, instead of reacting, you could rise above? Not metaphorically, but mentally. What if you could watch the entire situation from a bird's eye view? See the room, see yourself, see the other person, see the pain behind their anger, see your own pride flaring up. Suddenly, things look different, don't they? This is the Stoic practice known as the view from above, and it is one of the most profound mental tools ever developed. It's the ability to zoom out, to mentally step back from the storm, to remove yourself from the ego's tight grip, and see the situation with fresh, wider eyes. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the largest empire in the world, used this perspective often. Amidst wars, betrayals, and endless responsibilities, he'd write, "Watch the stars in their courses and imagine yourself running alongside them." Why? Because when you look up at the stars, everything small and petty, arguments, judgments, fears begins to fall away. The Stoics understood you can't always control what happens, but you can always change how you see it. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is step back far enough to see the full picture. Let's make it real. Imagine two friends, both wounded, both hurting, shouting over one another. Now zoom out. You see one is carrying the weight of abandonment. The other is drowning in a fear of being misunderstood. Zoom out more. You see they've been repeating the same cycle for years. Patterns inherited, triggered, unresolved. Zoom out again. You see their whole lives, their stories, their traumas, their humanity. Suddenly, This isn't just your fight anymore. It's our shared human struggle. And from that place of higher vision, compassion returns. Wisdom enters, and ego dissolves. The view from above isn't about being cold or detached. It's about seeing clearly. It helps you de-escalate conflict by remembering that this moment isn't everything. Forgive others by recognizing that they're acting from their pain. Make decisions with calm because you're no longer reacting from fear, but choosing from insight. It's the same as looking down on a crowded city from an airplane. What seems chaotic up close, the honking cars, the tangled streets, becomes ordered and beautiful from above. You see why things are the way they are. You gain perspective. In your own life. The practice is simple, but powerful. Next time you're overwhelmed, in conflict, in stress, in sadness, ask yourself, what would this look like from 30,000 feet? If I were watching myself in a movie right now, what would I want this character to do? If this were happening to someone I loved, what advice would I give them? These questions pull you out of your tunnel vision. They cut through the emotional fog, and they help you act, not just react. There's a story I once heard of a woman who, during an argument with her teenage son, felt herself about to explode. Her voice had already risen. Her heart was pounding. And then something shifted. She paused, closed her eyes, and imagined herself standing on the moon, looking down at Earth, at her street, her house, that tiny kitchen, that single, sacred moment with her child. She opened her eyes, and everything softened. She hugged him, not because he was right, but because she saw the bigger picture. That moment of space, of perspective, changed everything. That's the view from above. It doesn't solve every problem, but it gives you the clarity to face them with grace. And perhaps more importantly, it reconnects you to what actually matters. Because when you zoom out, you remember this fight is temporary. This mistake isn't the end. This pain has a place in a larger pattern. You realize that you are not the center of the universe, but you are a powerful, conscious part of it. And when you stop taking everything personally, you finally start taking things seriously, with presence, with humility, with intention. So try it today. When you feel tension rising, zoom out. When you feel stuck in your head, zoom out. When you feel wronged, ignored, or misunderstood, zoom out. Look at the stars. Look at the flow of time. Look at the countless lives unfolding all around you. And remember, you are not alone. You are not the only one struggling, and you are not the only one capable of choosing a wiser path. The view from above is not detachment. It is liberation. It frees you from the smallness of your perspective, and it grounds you in something larger, quieter, and wiser than the ego will ever understand. So the next time you feel yourself spiraling, ask, what does this look like from above? And then watch your mind open and your spirit rise. Now that you've learned how to gain clarity from above, let's move on to a different kind of wealth, one that isn't seen, one that can't be taken. In the next lesson, we'll explore the difference between internal versus external goods, and why the world's most powerful people aren't always the richest. What makes a person truly rich? Is it money, status, recognition? The modern world certainly thinks so. You scroll through social media, and the message is everywhere. Success equals wealth, power, luxury. The more you have, the more valuable you must be. But deep down, you know that isn't the whole story. Because some of the most anxious, insecure, and unhappy people are also the wealthiest. That's why the Stoics pointed us toward a different standard, one that doesn't rust, fade, or depend on public applause. This lesson is about internal vis, external goods. Marcus Aurelius put it beautifully, Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. That's it. Everything you need to live a good life, peace, courage, wisdom, purpose, it's already inside you. Not out there in the next job, the next relationship, or the next purchase. The Stoics didn't reject external success. They just refused to be enslaved by it. They understood that anything external, money, fame, even health, can be lost at any moment. But your inner character, that's yours to build, and no one can take it from you. Think about Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic teachers of all time. He was born into slavery. He had no wealth, no freedom, and at one point, his master broke his leg so badly during torture that he walked with a limp for the rest of his life. But Epictetus didn't let that break him. Instead, he used his suffering as a forge to shape an unshakable mind. He once said, "You may fetter my leg, but Zeus himself cannot get the better of my free will." In other words, you can control my body, you can take my comfort, but you'll never touch who I am inside. That's true power. That's wealth that can't be stolen. When Epictetus was finally freed, he didn't chase riches. He didn't seek revenge. He opened a school and taught others how to live with integrity. He knew what so many of us forget, that inner strength matters more than outer success. Now, take a moment to reflect on your own life. What are you chasing? Is it something that can be lost? Is it something you depend on to feel enough? Would your confidence collapse if your title was taken away, if your account ran dry, if your followers vanished? These are hard questions, but they matter, because if your worth is built on things that can disappear, then your peace will always feel fragile. But when your self-worth is built on inner goods, honesty, resilience, courage, kindness, then you become unshakable. Even in failure, you have dignity. Even in uncertainty, you have direction. Even in loss, you have you. And that is enough. This isn't just philosophy, it's survival. Because the world will let you down. Markets crash. People betray. Bodies age. But if you've cultivated the inner life, the part of you that chooses integrity over impulse, purpose over popularity, then you'll stand strong no matter what falls around you. The truth is, we live in a culture of appearance. We celebrate what's visible. We admire what's glamorous, but we ignore what's real. And what's real is this: kindness when no one's watching, courage when fear is loud. Discipline when no one's applauding, wisdom when the crowd is screaming nonsense. These things don't trend on Twitter. They shape your soul. So let me ask you, are you living a life others admire or a life you admire? Are you becoming someone the world envies or someone you respect when you're alone in the dark? This is where real confidence comes from, not from impressing others, but from knowing who you are and choosing to live by that truth every day. And the best part, you don't need a big break. You don't need a raise. You don't need more followers. You just need to begin with one small choice. Maybe it's telling the truth when it would be easier to lie. Maybe it's showing compassion when you've been hurt. Maybe it's keeping a promise to yourself, quietly, humbly, even if no one notices. That's the Stoic path. And it's available to you right now. No gatekeepers, no requirements, no delays. Just the decision to build your inner world. One thought, one action, one breath at a time. So, the next time you're tempted to measure your worth by what you have, pause and ask, what kind of person am I becoming? Because that's the one thing that matters in the end. Now that we've explored the power of inner values, let's shift toward something softer, but equally essential. In a world that constantly tells you to chase more success, more stuff, more validation, the next lesson invites you to pause, to look around. and to realize you already have more than enough. Let's talk about gratitude and why it's not a passive feeling, but a daily decision that unlocks your deepest joy. In today's world, we're constantly told you need more, be more, do more, achieve more, buy more. And while ambition has its place, this endless chase can slowly erode something sacred, our ability to see what's already right in front of us. That's why the 8th Stoic lesson is one of the most powerful antidotes to modern life. Gratitude. At first glance, gratitude seems soft, a nice idea, a feeling we visit on holidays or when things are going well. But Stoic gratitude is different. It's not reserved for moments of ease or triumph. It's a discipline, a lens, and at times, an act of quiet rebellion against the culture of more. Seneca once said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future, not to amuse ourselves with either hopes or fears, but to rest satisfied." That quote isn't just poetic, it's practical. It reminds us that peace isn't found in chasing what's next, but in noticing what's now. Let's make it real. Think about your day so far. Did you have something to eat? Did you sleep in a bed? Did someone smile at you, even a stranger? Did the sky look different when you stepped outside? Did music play? Did your lungs work? Did your heart keep beating, even while you weren't paying attention? You didn't earn these things. You don't own them, and yet they were given. And that's the quiet miracle of gratitude. It turns the ordinary into holy. It transforms survival into celebration. It opens your eyes to the fact that life, in all its messiness, still keeps giving. But here's the problem. We often don't realize what we have until it's gone. A simple cold reminds us of how precious good health is. A falling out with a friend reminds us of the beauty of connection. A quiet morning interrupted reminds us how sacred silence can be. The Stoics, however, didn't wait for loss to learn appreciation. They practiced gratitude daily, deliberately, so that, when hardship came, they had already built a reservoir of peace. They didn't just write about it, they lived it. Even Marcus Aurelius, with all the weight of an empire on his shoulders, made time to thank life for sunrises, for sleep, for breath, for the ability to reason. And if he could, so can we. So, how do you begin? Start small. At the end of each day, write down 3 things you're grateful for. Not the big, flashy things, but the quiet ones, the ones that whisper, not shout. Maybe it's the warmth of your tea, the way sunlight hit the floor, the sound of your child laughing in the next room, the moment you caught yourself and chose patience instead of anger. Write them down, not because gratitude is magic, but because your attention is. Where your attention goes, your emotion follows. And when you direct your attention toward what's working, what's beautiful, what's enough, you feel full, even when your circumstances are still unfolding. This is what modern Stoic thinkers call gratitude as resistance. Because in a world designed to keep you restless, grateful people are hard to manipulate. They don't buy every ad. They don't scroll forever. They don't believe that more is the answer. They've tasted enough and found it satisfying. And that doesn't make them passive. It makes them present. When you practice gratitude, you stop comparing your life to someone else's highlight reel. You stop resenting what others have. You start blessing what you've already been given. And as gratitude grows, something beautiful happens. Jealousy fades, panic slows, contentment arrives. You realize that so much of what you were chasing was already within your grasp, not in your possessions, but in your perspective. So if you're feeling stuck, frustrated, bitter, or empty, pause and ask yourself, what am I overlooking that is quietly sustaining me? There's always something, always, Even in grief, there is love. Even in failure, there is growth. Even in endings, there is a chance to begin again. Gratitude doesn't mean ignoring pain. It means also seeing what's good and giving it the attention it deserves. You don't need a perfect life to feel grateful. You just need a willing mind and an open heart. So try this. Next time you walk through your home, pretend it's the last time you'll see it. Next time you hug someone, pretend it's the last time you'll feel their warmth. Next time you eat, walk, speak, do it slowly, savor it. Because one day, it will be the last time. And when that day comes, you'll want to know that you truly lived, not by consuming more, but by appreciating deeply. This is the Stoic way, not cold, not distant, but grounded, clear, alive. If you've been wondering what the purpose of all this is, the discipline, the perspective, the clarity, this next and final Stoic lesson brings it all together. Because once you've let go of control, embraced your fate, faced death, lived in the moment, trained through discomfort, seen from above, built inner strength, and practiced gratitude, there's only one thing left: live according to nature. What does that mean? Not returning to the woods, but returning to your true self and the reason you were born. Let's dive into the final lesson of this journey. Have you ever paused in the middle of your busy life and asked yourself, what am I really here to do? Not in the sense of chasing another goal, but in the deeper sense of, what is my purpose, my true purpose as a human being? This question lies at the heart of the ninth and final Stoic lesson. Live according to nature, and by nature, the Stoics didn't mean wild forests and solitude, though those can help. They meant the nature of your true self, your deepest potential as a rational, social, and moral being. The Stoics believed that every one of us is born with two extraordinary gifts: reason, the power to think, to reflect, to choose; sociality, the drive to connect, to cooperate, to contribute to the common good. When you align your life with these gifts, when your ambitions, actions, and values flow from your reason and your desire to serve, you are living according to nature. You are unleashing your fullest humanity. Let's break that down. 1. Reason, your inner lighthouse made in a ship on a dark, stormy night, tossed by waves and fearing the rocks hidden beneath the waves. The crew can panic, abandon ship, or hold on, but what saves them is the lighthouse's beam far in the distance. It guides them to safety. Reason is your inner lighthouse. It lets you see the path when everything around you is chaotic. It helps you weigh choices, separating impulse from insight. It warns you when desire is blinding you. It reminds you that you are not your emotions, but their master. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the rational soul can choose its own path even in the darkest night. When you live by reason, you pause before reacting. You examine beliefs before adopting them. You anchor yourself in clarity instead of stormy feelings. 2. Sociality, your call to connection. We're wired for togetherness. From birth, we crave love, acceptance, and cooperation. The Stoics called this Philadelphia, brotherly love. They said human beings are like limbs on a single body. When one limb suffers, all suffer. Living according to nature means using your talents not only for personal gain, but to help others. Viewing every relationship as an opportunity for mutual growth. Seeing community not as optional, but essential to your flourishing. Seneca put it simply, no man is an island. Every individual is part of a whole. When you live by sociality, you offer kindness without expectation. You forgive because you remember others' flaws mirror your own. You invest in community projects, relationships, and mentorship. 3. Integrity, the bridge between reason and social literacy, tells you what's right. Sociality calls you to share it. Integrity is where they meet. It's doing what you know is right, not for show, but because you are who you say you are. Epictetus said, "If you live in accordance with nature, you will never be poor. If you live contrary to nature, you will never be rich." In practice, you speak truth, even when silence is easier. You keep promises, even when no one is watching. You stand for justice, even when it's unpopular. Integrity turns your internal values into external actions that benefit everyone. 4. Purpose. You're unique. Expression coming reason, sociality, and integrity reveals your purpose, not a vague notion, but a clear sense of how you can contribute, choosing your unique skills and passions. A teacher plants the seeds of wisdom in young minds. A programmer builds tools that empower millions. A parent shapes the next generation with love and guidance. A volunteer brings hope to those in need. When you live according to nature, you don't chase what society deems success. You pursue what aligns with your rational mind, your heart's desire to connect, and your commitment to integrity. 5. Fulfillment. The natural outcome is the beautiful part. When you live this way, fulfillment no longer depends on circumstances. It becomes your natural byproduct. You feel purpose in daily tasks, no matter how small. You find joy in small acts of kindness. You rest in the knowledge that you're part of something larger. This isn't pie-in-the-sky idealism. It's human. Psychology and ethics intertwined, tested over centuries by thinkers from Socrates to Marcus Aurelius. Practical steps to live according to nature. Reflect daily. Ask, did I use my reason today? Ask, did I serve someone or something beyond myself? Ask, did my actions align with my highest values? Identify your gifts. List your strengths, analytical skills, empathy, creativity. Consider, how can these serve your family, friends, or community? Set purposeful goals instead of get a raise. Aim for use my skills to improve team performance instead of gain followers. Aim for share ideas that help people solve real problems. Cultivate integrity. Make small promises to yourself, waking up on time, completing a task, and keep them. Let truthfulness and fairness guide your speech and decisions. Embrace community. Volunteer for causes you care about. Mentor someone. Invest in relationships with deep listening and genuine care. Return to presence. Circling back to section 4. Be fully here. From presence flows clarity and compassion, fuel for living by nature. The legacy of a natural life. When you live according to nature, your life becomes a beacon. Others see your calm in chaos, your kindness in conflict, and your integrity in temptation. You inspire not by preaching, but by being. Marcus Aurelius faced wars and betrayals. Epictetus endured slavery. They didn't have ideal lives, but they mastered the one thing they could, themselves, and through that mastery, they served countless others across millennia. Your life, with all its messiness, beauty, and heartbreak, can be part of that same current. It starts with a choice not to wait for permission or perfect conditions, but to say, today, I will live as I was born to live, in alignment with reason, in service to community, with unwavering integrity. That is the culmination of Stoicism in 9 lessons that guide you from feeling too late to realizing that right now is not just enough, but ideal. Congratulations, you've journeyed through 9 timeless Stoic principles. You've learned to separate what you control from what you don't. Love your fate, no matter its shape. Hold mortality as motivation. Anchor yourself in the present. Forge resilience through chosen hardship. Rise above through perspective. Build wealth and character, not possessions. Cultivate gratitude as a daily discipline. Live true to your rational, social, and moral nature. Now, what remains is action. Pick one lesson, practice it, share your experience, Join the community of those who choose to begin again right now, because Stoicism isn't a museum exhibit. It's a way of life, and your life imperfect, unfinished, and endlessly unfolding is where it matters most. Let's take a breath together. You've made it through 9 Stoic lessons, not just as information, but as transformation. And maybe something inside you has already shifted. A clearer mind, a steadier heart, a desire not just to think differently, but to live differently. But before you go rushing off to change everything at once, let's pause, because what you're stepping into now is perhaps the most important part of the journey, and it's the integration phase. This is where ideas become actions, where insights become habits, where the person you want to be stops living in theory and starts emerging in practice. So in this final stretch, in these closing chapters, let's walk through what it looks like to actually live Stoicism in your daily life, not just to admire it, quote it, or nod along, but to embody it. Let's begin here with your mornings. The morning reset. Every morning, you wake up with a clean slate. No matter what happened yesterday, today begins new. The Stoics treated the morning like a sacred ritual, a moment to anchor themselves before the winds of life could pull them in every direction. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, would write to himself, "When you rise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." That wasn't sentimentality. That was training, mental conditioning. He was preparing his mind for the day. So how do you begin your day with Stoic intention? Try this. Wake up without rushing, even if it's just 10 extra minutes. Give yourself space before the chaos begins. Read or recall a Stoic quote. Let it be your anchor for the day. Something like, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. Visualize your challenges. The Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, imagining what could go wrong. Not to obsess, but to prepare. Ask, who might test my patience today? What obstacles might arise? How can I respond with wisdom? Set your intention, not what you want to accomplish, but who you want to be. For example, today, I will speak calmly, even when I'm frustrated. I will be generous with my attention. This isn't about perfection. It's about preparing your inner world before the outer world tries to shape it for you. Navigating the day like a Stoic day will never go exactly how you imagined. Someone will disappoint you. Traffic will test you. An email will annoy you. Your plans may fall apart. And this is where Stoicism shines, not in theory, but in those exact, ordinary, difficult moments. When someone offends you, ask, is their behavior within my control? If not, let go of the urge to control it. Control yourself. That's enough. When stress rises, pause and return to your breath. Name the stress, don't fight it. Observe it. Then say silently, this is not bigger than me. When you fail or fall short, don't collapse into shame. Don't justify or blame. Say, I fell, yes, but I rise stronger. I will do better next time. That's Stoicism in motion. Evening reflection. The day ends. The sun sets. Your head meets the pillow. This is when most people scroll, escape, distract. But the Stoics, they reflected. Seneca and Epictetus encouraged nightly self-inquiry, not as punishment, but as growth. Try asking yourself, what did I do well today? Where did I act from ego instead of virtue? Did I live today as if it mattered? Don't condemn yourself. Don't inflate yourself. Just tell the truth. Growth is built on honest observation, not harsh judgment. As Epictetus put it, what is the fruit of these teachings? A mind that is in harmony with itself, and that harmony is cultivated, one reflection at a time. The core habit, return to the present. If you remember nothing else from this video, Remember this, you can always return to the present. No matter how messy your morning was, no matter how far your thoughts drifted, no matter how intense your emotions feel, you can always stop, breathe, and say, right now is where my power lives. It doesn't matter if you fell short earlier. What matters is that you return. Again and again and again. That's the Stoic practice. Not perfection, but presence. Not control over the world, but mastery over your responses. Not running from pain, transforming it into strength. Not chasing applause, but living with quiet integrity. You don't need to change everything. One of the biggest traps is thinking you need to transform your whole life overnight. You don't. In fact, real change rarely comes from dramatic leaps. It comes from consistent, intentional steps. So just choose one thing. Practice one Stoic reflection each morning. Replace one reaction with a pause. Let go of one resentment. Say no to one comfort that keeps you weak. That's all. Small steps compound, and over time, they transform your character, quietly, steadily, deeply. You were made for this. Stoics didn't believe that only a select few were capable of virtue. They believed every human being, including you, is born with the tools: a rational mind, a conscience, a heart capable of choosing love over fear. All that's needed is intention. All that's missing is practice. And all that remains is the choice. You have that choice now. To begin again. To walk the Stoic path, not someday, but today. And if you ever feel like you're drifting, doubting, or struggling, come back to the 9 lessons. Come back to the truth, because you already have everything you need to live a life of clarity, strength, and peace. And now is the perfect time to start. Next, you'll learn how Stoicism applies to modern distractions, social pressure, and the emotional noise of today's world, and how to find stillness in the storm. The modern world is loud. Notifications buzz. Timelines scroll endlessly. Opinions scream from every direction. You're told what to want, who to be, how to think, before you've even had time to ask yourself if any of it is true. We live in a storm of comparison, urgency, and noise. And somewhere in that storm, it's easy to lose sight of something priceless: your inner stillness. That's what this section is about. Not another idea to add to your overloaded mind, but a reminder of what's already inside you: the power to be calm in the chaos, focused in distraction, grounded in truth, unmoved by the noise. Let's begin here. You are not the world's noise. If Stoics understood distraction, no, they didn't have smartphones, but they had politics, gossip, temptation, pressure. The human condition hasn't changed much. Only the tools have. And Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, understood this better than anyone. In the middle of running an empire, battling wars, facing betrayals, and dealing with constant demands, he wrote to himself, "People look for retreats for themselves in the country, by the sea, in the mountains, but nowhere can a person find a retreat more peaceful or untroubled than in their own soul. Let that land. The deepest peace isn't out there, it's in you." But how do you find it when your phone keeps lighting up, when the pressure keeps mounting, when the fear of missing out gnaws at your quiet moments? The Stoic answer: discipline of attention. You can't stop the noise of the world, but you can choose what you give your focus to, and whatever you focus on, that's what grows. How to practice stillness in a distracted world. Let's make this practical. Here are some Stoic-inspired practices to reclaim your stillness, no matter how loud life gets. 1. Control your inputs. You are not obligated to consume everything. Unfollow accounts that stir up envy or outrage. Limit news exposure, not to be ignorant, to avoid being overwhelmed. Choose to read a page of wisdom before you scroll anything in the morning. Seneca warned, There is nothing the busy man is less busied with than living. Don't mistake stimulation for purpose. Curate your mental diet like your physical one. 2. Create sacred time-set boundaries around your time and energy. Turn your phone on airplane mode during meals, deep work, or moments of silence. Block off 30 minutes a day for reflection. No screens, just thoughts, paper, or prayer. Protect your sleep like it's sacred, because it is. Stillness isn't passive, it's protective. 3. Reclaim the lost art of boredom. Every time you feel the itch to check your phone, pause. Feel the discomfort. Let boredom breathe. Because boredom isn't the problem, avoidance is. When you stop running from silence, you start hearing your inner voice again. The Stoics didn't run from themselves. They turned inward, patiently, and asked, "What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Who am I becoming?" How to face judgment and external pressure. Who live in an era of surveillance, not just by governments, but by each other. We post, share, and curate our lives, often more for approval than for truth. But the Stoics knew how toxic that can be. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Why? Because growth often requires going against the crowd, choosing silence over spectacle, choosing depth over image, choosing principle over popularity. You must decide, will you live for applause, or will you live in alignment with your values, even if no one notices? That doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means being free from needing validation to do what's right. Freedom is saying no when yes would impress others, saying yes when no would protect your pride. The strength of stillness. Stillness isn't just about peace, it's about power. Because when you're still, you hear more, you see more, you respond rather than react. Stillness gives you room to think clearly, to choose wisely, to lead effectively. In military strategy, in sports, in negotiation, the calmest person in the room is often the most dangerous. Not because they're violent, but because they are centered. When you cultivate stillness, you stop letting the world pull you in 100 directions. You walk your path, step by step, with quiet strength. A practice, the inner citadel. Stoics described something called the inner citadel, a fortified space within your soul that no one and nothing can invade. No insult can shake it. No loss can destroy it. No pressure can corrupt it. It is where your values live, where your peace lives, where your freedom lives. And the more you return to it, through reflection, meditation, prayer, or silence, the stronger it becomes. Imagine living with that kind of unshakable foundation. Not to be emotionless, but to be emotionally sovereign. Not to be unreachable, but to be deeply rooted. That's what this practice gives you. And that's what the modern world desperately needs more of. The final filter before you post, before you react, before you judge, before you spiral. Stop. Ask the Stoic question, does this deserve my energy? Because not everything does. Not every comment needs a reply. Not every debate needs your involvement. Not every invitation aligns with your values. Sometimes, the wisest move is to stay still, to breathe, to wait, to let your silence be your strength. So, if the world feels noisy right now, if you feel like you're being pulled in too many directions, if your mind feels cluttered, distracted, and reactive, then let this be your reset. Come back to what's real, what's quiet, what's you. Still, calm, clear. And remember, even in the chaos of the world, even when everything outside feels fast, loud, urgent, you can still return home to the citadel within. In the final section, we'll bring everything together, not as an ending, but as a beginning, because the Stoic path doesn't end when the lessons are over. It begins when you live them, one day one breath, one choice at a time. Let's walk that last mile together. You've arrived, not at the end of a video, not at the end of a script, but at the threshold of something deeper, the beginning of your Stoic path. Over the last 11 sections, you've absorbed ideas that have survived empires, crossed centuries, and outlived kings, not because they're ancient, but because they're eternal. And now they're alive in you. But here's the question you must answer now, not with words, but with how you live. What will you do with all of this? Because knowing is not enough. Stoicism was never meant to be read and forgotten. It was meant to be lived in the streets, in the silence, in the chaos, in your relationships, in your regrets, in your second chances. So let's bring everything together now, not to summarize, but to solidify. Let's walk through these 9 Stoic principles one last time, with clarity and intention, and discover how they become a way of being. 1. The dichotomy of control foundation. The compass, the line between what is up to you and what is not. You can't rewrite the past. You can't control others' thoughts. You can't make life fair. But you can choose your words, your actions, your mindset, your values. And that's where freedom lives. When the world overwhelms you, pause and ask, is this within my control? Then act or let go. 2. Amor fati, just accept your fate. Love it. Not because pain feels good, but because pain shapes you. Every loss, every failure, every delay, it's all part of the greater design. You are not the victim of your life. You are the alchemist, turning what happens into who you become. Say it when things go wrong. Amor fati. This too I will love. 3. Memento mori, you will die. That is certain, and far from making life bleak. This makes it radiant, urgent, precious. Remember this truth every day, not to fear it, but to fuel you. Let it shape your choices. Would I still waste time on this grudge? Would I still stay silent? Would I still delay the thing that matters? You don't know how many days you have, but you have this one. Use it well. 4. Focus on the present. The past is memory. The future is imagination. The present is reality. You live here. You breathe here. You are here. So bring your full attention to this moment. Whether you're washing dishes or starting a business. Live now. Act now. Choose now. Because all of life unfolds now. 5. Voluntary discomfort and wait for hardship to test you. Test yourself. Choose discomfort so you're not broken by it later. Fast for a day. Wake early. Say no to indulgence. Sit with boredom. Walk in the rain. Train your soul to endure. Because when you've chosen difficulty on your own terms, life's storms feel smaller. You are no longer breakable. You are no longer afraid. 6. The view from above. Zoom out. Always. When your ego flares, when your temper boils, when your fears shout the loudest. Zoom out. Look at the bigger picture. See others not as enemies, but as people caught in their own storms. See yourself not as a victim, but as a participant in something larger. Perspective dissolves pride, and from that, wisdom grows. 7. Internal versus external goods. What can be taken from you isn't you. Your bank account, your job, your status, all external. But your integrity, your kindness, your courage, wisdom, honesty, and will, that's who you really are. And no one can touch it but you. So stop measuring your life by what you collect and start measuring it by what you cultivate. 8. Gratitude. You have more than you think. You woke up, you breathed, you loved, you hurt, you made it through another day. Life doesn't owe you anything, and yet it keeps giving. So train your eyes to see not what's missing, but what's already here. Because the secret isn't more, it's appreciation, it's presence, it's enough. 9. Live according to natural life as you were designed to live, with reason, with compassion, with purpose, with integrity. Use your unique gifts. Serve your community. Be kind, even when no one's watching. Speak truth. Do good. Act from your highest self. This is what it means to live according to nature. To live in alignment with what you already know is right. So, what now? There's no final exam, no Stoic badge, no applause, only the quiet, steady challenge of living this everyday. So let me offer you a challenge, a small one, but powerful. Pick one principle. Live it for 1 week. Let it guide your actions. Let it shape your choices. Then reflect. What changed? What felt difficult? What felt right? And then choose another and another. Because this is how transformation happens, not through lightning strikes, but through fire quietly tended. You don't need to be a philosopher. You don't need to move to the mountains. You don't need to quote Latin. You don't need to escape modern life. You just need to be you, fully awake, fully responsible, and fully present. Stoicism doesn't ask you to become someone else. It asks you to return to the strength that's already within you. And that strength is there. Right now. So no more waiting. No more saying, I wish I knew this earlier. You know it now. And now is the best time to begin. Final word. You can't change the past. You don't control the future. But you are holding this moment in your hands. Make it matter. Make it real. Make it yours. You don't need more time. You just need this one truth. You're ready. Not next week. Not when you feel more confident. Not when the world approves. You're ready now. So stand tall. Walk forward. Live the Stoic path, not perfectly, but intentionally. Not without fear, but with courage anyway. And if ever you forget, come back to this moment, this message. This breath. You needed to hear this sooner, but now is the right time. Always. Sweet dreams.